Hello, my friends. It's so wonderful to have you back listening in today to the Girls for Greatness podcast. And if this is your first time listening in, welcome. I am your host, Delia Perry, and you are listening in to episode number 145 with Nicole Jansen. I am looking forward to having you all hear Nicole's story as well, and as to having you learn about Nicole's wisdom and her expertise. But a little bit about her first before we kind of jump in. Nicole has been empowering entrepreneurs for over 30 years. Her vast experience in business leadership and human behavior has uniquely equipped her to bring out the best in others. Nicole is the founder of Discover the Edge and the Leaders of Transformation podcast, reaching listeners in over 140 countries. Nicole is passionate about empowering leaders at the highest levels to shift their perspective and solve complex issues with the aim of creating a more just and prosperous world for everyone. You guys, it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce you to Nicole. Nicole, welcome to the Girls for Greatness podcast.
Thanks for having me. I am excited to be here and love talking to a fellow woman who is making an impact in the world. So Delia, thank you.
Yes, you bet. Well, tell us where you're located and maybe just a little bit about you to start.
Sure. So I am in San Diego County, just north of the city. So I'm in Vista.
Okay.
And I've been down here in a few weeks. It'll be 10 years that I've been down in Southern California. I'm originally from Canada, Toronto, Canada. And so for all the Canadians out there, woo-hoo. So I love Canada, but it's warmer down here. And I do love the weather, and have been blessed to be down to the opportunity to stay down here. So a little bit of background on me. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur ever since I was literally a kid, and my parents were entrepreneurs. They owned garage businesses, Esso franchise, and then a Sunoco franchise and muffler franchise and different things. And my dad owned the businesses. My mother worked in the business and helping to do the paperwork and all of that. And so I really learned early on about the home team, about family working together to grow a business. And when I was 7, my parents started a home-based business as well, in addition to the other businesses that they had. And that business was a business that I could be involved in. I didn't really go in the garage because I didn't like getting too dirty.
Sure.
My brother hung out there, and he wanted to, he cleaned the the tools, boys' toys. And then I offered to help just open boxes, when they came in and do inventory and all of that. So that's kind of where I started. And so I've been in business my whole life and seen a lot of success in business. Also seen a lot of failure in business as well. That is the failure and the struggles in business also impacted my health, impacted relationships. It kind of spills over, who you are in one area spills over to who you are in other areas. And so it's been an incredible journey. And I've been coaching entrepreneurs now for over 15, 16, I think it's, 17 years now, formally, and then informally for about 30. And then started my podcast, like you mentioned, my podcast back in 2015. So we are on 6 years and just released today, episode 400.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So how many years were you with your family business before you kind of decided to leave that and kind of branch out on your own and do your own thing with, helping others?
Yeah. So actually I had my own business for my first unofficially, as a kid, even in grade 6, I was making jewelry and selling it to my friends, and I was selling it at flea markets. My mom was selling something at the flea markets as well on the weekends. Anyways, that's a long story in terms of my parents having a lot of success and then losing everything, and they needed to generate some income. My dad sold some of the garage businesses at that time, the ones that he had, and he actually invested in another business that didn't work out. And so anyway, so we ended up doing whatever we needed to do. And so while I was there with her, I thought, well, I'm going to make jewelry and do that. That was, as I say, very young. But then I launched my first official business when I was 16. So I was already helping my parents in their business. I was also working, because it's direct sales, helping our upline do a lot of the back end for their business because they were traveling a lot. And that was when I was about 14 or 15. And then when I was 16, I started my own sales and marketing. I started selling things door to door to companies. And
wow.
I just knew that I wanted to be in business for myself. And so I found a product that I could buy at wholesale, turn around and sell at retail, figured out who needed it, and then just started there. And I've sold everything under the sun. So I have had that business for now over 30 years, 33 years. And then I should say, I don't do that anymore now, but I had that business since, back then. And then, while I was doing that, I also started my own team in direct sales and under my parents, but then I partnered with my parents alongside that and found that because that business was growing so fast that I needed to spend more and more time. I was doing both, but I was doing more and more time there. And eventually I ended up partnering with them in the business. It just made sense to do that. And so I ended up letting go of my business, my distributorship. Probably it was when I decided I didn't want to continue in that industry because the business had been successful, and then it fell apart because of some issues that happened in our organization of upline and stuff. So when I did that, then I let go of that business. And then that's when in 2005 I shifted gears and went into the coaching and decided to take we had built an 8-figure business, and I thought that's what I was going to do the rest of my life. But when it fell apart, that's why I talk about just and prosperous businesses, corruption, egos, getting out of whack, and all of that. And so I just didn't want to rebuild that industry because of the inherent issues, the way it was. And so I just decided to take all that I had learned there and then apply it and use it in business to help other business owners to avoid some of the same mistakes that I had we made.
Sure. I know there's so many questions I could ask in relation to that whole story, which thank you for sharing that. But, one thing that just comes to mind is maybe, how did you, I guess, navigate that whole time in your life when things just got really rough and you realized the challenges you were going to be up against and seeing, the successful business, become something that, you never anticipated. And then I think my second question would be, what is your take then now on businesses that are similar, or just kind of someone that finds themselves in that same type of structure, same type of business and all of that? I'm just curious what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, great questions. So first of all, I'll answer the second question and go back to the first one. That second question actually is, it was interesting because years later, I had a mentor who described a code of honor. Blair Singer, I'll give him credit. He's an amazing leader and teacher and all of that, and consults to Fortune 50 companies, Fortune 5. And he said he teaches a code of honor. You have a code of honor, not just core values in a business, like respect and integrity and all those nice words, but really it's a code of honor of how you live those out on a day-to-day basis. And when he said that part of his code of honor for his organization is that you put mission first, team second, individual third, and you prioritize it. So when you make decisions, mission comes first, team, and then individual. It clicked for me. And I said, that's what we were missing. Because while we had a mission and we were clear on why we were in business, helping other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. Right. Help people create financial freedom, you'll be taken care of too. And we were. What happened is that when you don't have that intention, then it's very easy for that model to get flipped. And an individual then puts themselves first. And how often do we see that in business, in any type of business, where a CEO puts themselves before, or a leadership team puts themselves before the mission? So they pay out big bonuses to themselves, or they need all the credit, or all whatever, right? So that's where corruption, greed, and ego come in. And so the answer to the question is that if you can prioritize, get really clear on why are we in business in the first place? What are we doing here? and then keep that as the forefront. If we're going to make this decision, or I want to do this thing, does it serve the mission? Does it serve the team? Right? If I serve them, you have a big enough vision and a big enough, like a mission and a purpose, right? Then it will encompass and it will take care of the team and the individual. But if a individual puts themselves first, it's pretty much guaranteed that the team is going to suffer and the mission is going to fall by the wayside.
Right. Right.
So in that, it's not that I couldn't build that business model again, but I put 20 years into that business model. And it's like, when you start over again, you're like, you know what? I think I'm over it.
Right. Right.
But I've worked with a lot of leaders and even people that are starting out in direct sales. And it's a great model. It's an incredible, I know I still have friends. I mean, we technically still have the business. There's just very little left of it. People still buying products and so forth. So it's still have it. I mean, it's 42 years old or whatever it is now, but, my heart wasn't necessarily in it. And that's why I said I wanted to take this and then apply it. And I realized what my passion was, which comes back to your first question of who am I? Why was I created? What's my purpose in all of this? Because business is just a vehicle, right? It's just a way that you get to live out who you are. And so when the business fell apart, I, first of all, asked myself, let's be honest, I asked myself, what the heck just happened? Right. And went through that whole why me, question of the pity party, right? Like, why does this happen to us? We're good people and blah, 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 and so forth. We did all the right things, all of that. And I want to just be clear, I take responsibility, because if I put myself in a victim, then I put somebody else in the position of control. And so we took ownership in the moment. We initially had that pity party, but then as we unpacked it, realized and taking ownership and responsibility for the things that we didn't do that we could have done to perhaps circumvent the problem. Right. And where my parents were actually loyal to a fault, they would say, everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be fine. God's going to take care of us. And it's like, yeah. And there's certain things that we need to do because we can't just avoid and play ostrich and pretend like this isn't happening. So I was left with 3 questions when all the dust was settled, if you will. And I was sitting there thinking like, that's, not how I thought it was going to go. I asked myself 3 questions. First of all, who am I? Why am I here? And what do I have to offer? And so the first question dealt with identity. And so I searched and, obviously being in personal development my whole life, I researched books and so forth. Where I found my identity, though, was in who God said that I was. Because to me, that was an anchoring point. It was nice. I go to a seminar and they say, oh, you can have your I am statements, right? I'm a money magnet. I'm a this, I'm a that. But there really wasn't any firm rooted grounding in that. But when I went to, for me, this is me being a faith-based person, although I did question God and I did question whether or not he was somebody that I wanted to believe in and trust after all of this happened, I blamed him for a while. I really sought in my heart and said, like, who am I created to be? Not, for those that are not faith-based, you say, who am I created to be, right? There is a higher power. If you don't believe in God, there's a higher power. There's something beyond us, right? I didn't create myself. I didn't create the trees. I think there's something beyond us that created all that. And so saying, so like, what am I, if you want to know the purpose of a thing, you ask, or the identity of a thing, you ask the architect. Right. So I went and said, like, who am I? And that really led to some deep-seated questions of like being loved. I am loved. I am valued. I am safe. Some very fundamental things that, as simple as they sound, that if we don't have those things in place and know that that's the case, because I believe that when we're young, as kids, we learn things, or we're we're so impressionable. Sure. And we hear things like, people say things to us like, why are you, you're such a, you're such a mischief, right? Or you're this, or you're that, or like as a kid, right? We'll get criticisms and spoken to us. and we believe them for ourselves. Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe my parents, not in my case, but in some cases, people's parent, they get their parents get divorced,
Right.
and then they actually blame themselves. So there's lies. So they get all these lies, that they're taking on, and they're just young and impressionable as kids, and they don't know any different to say, hey, no, I'm not going to take that on. And so we have all these lies. And so we need something that will actually address that. And it's always, that lie always comes down to a not enough. I'm not enough in some way. So I'm trying to compensate for that in my life to, kind of like outrun that. If I think I'm unlovable, I'm going to try to go search for love. I'm either going to do that, or I'm going to sabotage love when it shows up, because either way, it's like I've got to validate and support this lie. And so that question for me was really rooted in, who am I? What's the lie I've believed? And then what do I know to be true about myself? And for me, being like, we had just experienced a huge failure, is to not own and say, I am a failure. The business failed. That doesn't make me a failure. And then from there, I asked myself the question, why am I here? Like, what's the whole purpose of this game of life? And that's where, I came up, and realized that it's like the Bible says, love God, love one another as yourself. Right. And then from there, because like, oh, wow. So we actually all have the same purpose. For those, some of your listeners maybe have asked themselves that question, what's my purpose? How many people, these three questions are some of the most popular questions people have asked themselves in history. Right. So, but anyway, if you want to jump in, I know I'm.
No, I love it. I love it. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. How has that kind of come about, or maybe even shifted or changed, even from, I know when we spoke before the interview a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about relationships, and I think there's a lot of women who have endured a lot in that regard, and, maybe are in a relationship that they're not real happy with, or just are working through some things, whatever that is. And I'm just curious for you, how that has played a part in your own identity and what you've come to understand about yourself.
Yeah, great question. So that business got me to those three questions. I answered those three questions and addressed them from what I knew in that context. Later on, I got married, and I had actually, it did play out already in relationships, because I had, a few before getting married, and I could see a pattern showing up, but I didn't know what to do with the pattern. And I kind of thought that I had dealt with it. I let it all go. How many times do we hear people say that? Right? Like that's long gone. I've forgotten about that. But the reality is that's still, if you haven't really dealt with it, it is still there. It's like you're outrunning it. Right. But you haven't actually healed from it and been totally free. And so I got married, and I married the love of my life. And I thought, right. And then one thing led to another. And he decided at one point, he said, I've changed my mind. I don't want to be married. That's how I got down here. He's American. So, and then he decided, I changed my mind. And I'm like, and not just changed my mind, like, you're great and everything, and I want to go off. But he actually said that I wasn't enough, right? He said that you're not this and you're not that. And he looked for all the wrong in me, and was very critical. And it broke me. I thought I had worked out my stuff until that happened. And the person closest to me told me that I wasn't enough. And it brought up that fear. And I realized I hadn't fully dealt with it. And so, because I dealt with it from a business standpoint, but now this is a personal standpoint. I had dealt with it from a health standpoint, but now this was at the core. There wasn't anything further deeper than that. He got right to the core of it. And so I went on a journey of discovery and understanding, like, okay, where does this not enoughness that keeps showing up, where is it actually coming from? And did a lot of inner healing and work around that. and to realize that I am enough. And when I got to the point where I realized, you know what? Yes, there's some things that I need to take responsibility in this relationship for, because it's not about blaming him either. I'm not going to do the same thing in the reverse.
Right.
Is just to look at it and saying, wow, yeah, there's some things that I can do differently, and there's things that I can improve. And the fact that I was so impacted by his words and his actions indicated that there was something in me that was out of integrity, incomplete, not whole. But when I got whole, then I got to see the relationship for what it is. And I said, oh, wait a second. At this point now, because I've dealt with this and this is still continuing, this is not me. This is him. And I realized that the reason why, and not blaming, but with compassion, realizing and saying, wow, he doesn't love himself. He thinks he's not enough. And so therefore he's trying to project it on me. So then I could see the relationship for what it is, and started to, rather than try to be on the defense, right, and fight back, is that I didn't have to defend myself, because I knew who I was then. And I knew that I was whole and complete, loved, chosen, accepted, approved, right? Valuable because I am, not because of what I do and what I look like. And then I could focus on, so I knew it wasn't about, so he could still say those things, but it didn't affect me anymore because of my perspective. And so I could then be a support to him, an encouragement to him, and to address the real issue, which was he didn't love himself. And that there was so much freedom in that. And there was so much forgiveness that I was able to not only forgive, which is kind of a buzzword nowadays, like we got to forgive. And it is absolutely true. We have got to forgive. But there's another level to that, where it's actually, at one point he said to me, we were standing actually in the divorce court. And he said to me, I hope one day you'll be able to forgive me. And you imagine like how much had to have happened. And there's a lot more to that story to get to that point where he could actually say that to me. And so we weren't like at odds or anything, because I wasn't at odds. I stopped the dance. And so therefore the dance had to stop. Well, so I said to him, I said, I've already forgiven you. And I'll be honest, I love you. And actually, I still love you. I accept your actions, and that's different, right? So those actions and decisions, you've made your decision, and I respect that. But I've already forgiven you. In fact, I want to thank you, because you didn't mean it for that and didn't intend for that. But because of all of this, I got to see who I was and where my weak points were, and be able to build myself on a more solid foundation. And so I'm a better person. I'm a stronger person. I'm a more loving person. I'm a more compassionate person. My ability and capacity to love those, even those that hurt me, increased exponentially. And so thank you. So I'm actually grateful.
Wow. That's remarkable. So what did he say?
He was actually blown away. He actually said, he goes, wow, you're amazing. And I said, no, let's be clear.
Yeah.
This is God's love and amazing grace working through me. Because if it were up to me, I would have shot you.
Right.
So, no,
right.
But I kind of half joked, but I mean, and I say that joking, but seriously, like if it were up to me and my ego, again, this is the ego playing out in a different arena, but it's still the ego.
Right.
If it were my ego, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Right. But through that healing process and realizing, and that's where my faith comes in, is realizing that God loves me so much, right, that he filled me up with this love, right, this abundance. I feel I'm coming now from this place of abundance, like, wow, that I have enough to share, and it's like flows out of you. Right. But when we are in lack, and that's what we're experiencing a lot right now, even especially the last 2 years, 18 months or whatever, is so much lack and shortage of love that when somebody says something or something happens, we go into scarcity. Most people operate from scarcity. I did, and I didn't even know it. Here I'm trying to be successful, and I'm operating from a place of scarcity. I'm trying to figure out why I can't get to abundance. But it's because at the core, I was trying to outrun scarcity.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning that most people, it's like when you come from that place of scarcity, like I'm not enough. So I'm going to prove to the world that I'm enough, right? I'm operating from this place of scarcity. Most people, when they, we saw it with the toilet paper. I mean, what the heck? Everybody's running off getting toilet paper. It's like, what's up with that? It's immediately we go to scarcity. If you listen to the news, it's all about fear. Fear comes from scarcity. You're either coming from a place of love or a place of fear. You're either coming from a place of abundance and an overflowing wellspring, or you're coming from a place of scarcity, lack.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's amazing. It shows up in business. People will say, I need to get more clients. How do I get more clients? How do I save more money? Oh, I got a great deal on that. You know what? I really got them whittled down and so forth. And I'm so blessed because I got them, down and negotiated down to this rate. Well, okay. So is that coming from a place of scarcity, or is that actually coming from a place of abundance? I'm not saying you need to overpay, but at the same time, what did that leave that person? You got them down to their lowest price, right? You're actually operating from a place of scarcity with the assumption that I don't have an abundance. So I need to hold on to as much as I can. It's very pervasive. It's in relationships. People are short on patience. They're short on forgiveness. They're short on gratitude. They're short on acknowledgement, compassion. And so therefore the other person says something and they get triggered and they're off to the races.
Yeah. That's
fighting
so true.
Back and forth. But love, there's a saying where love covers a multitude of sins. Love is the answer. Love heals. And I hear a lot of times people say, well, actually it's more than love. It's not love is not enough. Well, it is. Perfect love actually is enough. But the problem is we don't usually come from love. We come from a place of control. Is I will love you or exchange. I will love you if you love me. And if I don't, or if I love you first and you don't give me love, then I will withdraw my love. But love actually, that's not love. That's horse trading, right? Tony Robbins has a more crass way of putting that. I won't say it here. So he's like, it's a trade. I'm giving to you and you're going to give to me. That's a transaction. Whereas love is actually, you can't, when you come from that place of abundance, what happens is that you can't help but love because it's who you are. And you have so much. You feel so abundant, you feel so expansive that you actually want all of those, even your enemies, to be blessed.
That's so true.
And then there's freedom. There's freedom. And then there's freedom. You don't carry all of that. Just imagine how much people are carrying. People are so sick. There are a lot of people, and they say it's because of COVID, but there's a lot of other things going on. People are so sick because, and I was, I mean, I didn't know if I was going to see my 35th birthday for the way it was going at the time in my late 20s. And it was all of this toxic, these emotions are linked directly to our physical. Right. And so when we release the emotion, then we have the ability to then be healthy and whole, right? Because we're not carrying all that stuff. It's not eating away at us literally within. So
that's so true. That's so true. Wow, that's a lot. I mean, that whole concept of abundance, I think, just hearing you talk about that, some of the things that come to mind too, I think are just the fact that I think that ties in with, self-love and confidence, because, I mean, that word confidence, sometimes it rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I think it's something that it can be taken so many different ways, people can look at, I think sometimes confidence and arrogance get confused. I think, but I feel like true confidence is like an inner knowing of who you are and what's important to you, what your values are, just being strong in that person and not apologizing for it, and living your life, accordingly. And I think when you do that and you couple that with, obviously love for yourself and gratitude, I feel like abundance is so much easier to access in terms of I'm not just talking financial, I'm talking just in how you live and the way that you are in the world and your ability to give and to make an impact. I just feel like those things are all so tied together. And I think it gets so confused and messed up in our everyday world and just all the things we're bombarded with.
Well, and the abundance actually is the foundation for confidence. It comes from that place of love, right? Our deepest core need is to be loved and to love, right? And so it actually starts there. People say, where does it all begin? How do you gain confidence? Well, you've got to love yourself,
right?
Because if you don't love yourself, it is the lens in which you will see others, and it is the lens in which you will see the world. To your point about confidence, you have a lot of confidence. Confidence and arrogance are two very different things. Like you said, the confidence, you'll know if you're confident when you are okay with yourself, whole and complete, right? Accepting yourself, and there is space for others to be the very best that they can be too. So
that's true.
My confidence doesn't diminish anyone else's confidence in greatness. I can say, I'm great, and so are you. Right. And then that's coming from that place of abundance. It's a win-win. It's an abundance versus a win-lose. Anytime there's a win-lose, it's actually a scarcity. It's a zero-sum game.
So true. And I think you can still be confident and still acknowledge the fact that you have so much to work on, and you still have growth.
It's a lifelong journey. It's never going to end.
You're not perfect, and you've got things that you're working towards and things that you have to overcome. I mean, I think sometimes people confuse that too and think, well, I can't be confident in who I am because I'm not this way, or I don't have this together, or I still have this bad habit, or, whatever. I mean, that's where I think we set these limits.
It's where you have confidence in knowing that you're on the path,
right?
That you have confidence in yourself, in the ability to figure it out. Did I have confidence back then? I actually did, but now it's different layers of confidence. Sure. And even like a couple of months ago, I mean, I had this meltdown over the weekend, and I was just feeling like all this stuff. And I was like, where did this come from? I've done all this work and everything. And it was like, I prayed about it, and God showed me, you still have bitterness and resentment, not necessarily towards my ex-husband. He's now my ex-husband. But towards some stuff that happened when I was a kid and whatever. And I was like, I still really? And so then I was like, show me where is that? Right. So I searched where is that coming from? And as I released it, oh my gosh, it was like, I thought this was great. And then I got to another level of like, wow, the freedom that was having released that. Sometimes we don't know, and that's a challenge. That's why coaching is great, and having somebody that can guide you through the process, because we don't know how good it can be. And so we think this is as good as it can be. And so, but it's definitely layers. And I'm sure that I'm going to still have, and I know I still have stuff to work on. So, but it's the confidence in myself, knowing that I don't have to wait until I've got it all figured out to be enough. I'm already enough. I was born enough. You were born enough. Every single person listening to this was born enough. What has value? A baby doesn't have to prove their worth. They are worthy because they are. They were born into this world. And so we are still the baby, right? And so from that place, then I make mistakes and I go, oh, wow, I messed up there. Oh, wow, I didn't mean to offend that person. I hurt that person. Or, oh, wow, I talked too long on that podcast, or whatever, right? Those things, then they're no longer judgments against myself to say, see, I told you weren't enough. I told you what you were, and starting to put shame. Now it's oh, wow, I could work on that and get better at that. I can improve on that. But that's out there. That's actually it's not diminishing my value.
That's a good point. I love that. Before I wrap up with a couple of questions, so many things I could say. One of the other things I wanted to ask was just in all of your, interviews and all of your time that you've worked with other entrepreneurs, women in business, whatever, I'm curious, like for you, what are the top 3 things that you think you see the most of when it comes to women and just, I think their struggle to maybe even hone in on that identity?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think that, I mean, there's a lot to that.
Right.
What I'll say is that I think one of the things that women do, and this goes for men too, but we're talking to women, is what women do is they assign their identity and their worth outside themselves.
Mm.
So they might assign their identity to their attractiveness.
Mm.
And, if they're beautiful, then they feel good if they feel, that day. Or maybe it's to their associations. Maybe it's to the fact that they have a family and that they're a mom. So they assign themselves. These are all external validations. There's actually 7 external validations that I've identified. So they're archetypes, meaning all the personalities and the enneagrams and all that stuff. They're great tools. But if you assign your identity and you're always looking for somebody else to tell you who you are, then you're going to be on shaky ground. Acquisitions, accomplishments, accolades, associations, and adversity. So women will, often they'll look for that external validation to validate who they are. That's one of the things. The other thing is that part of that is who we associate with, right? That's why your podcast is great, because it gets people to stop and think and saying, hey, like, let me check in. Let me take a moment to check in. Women tend, especially if they're moms, they tend to put other people first. We're nurturers. So we tend to put other people first. Even if you don't have kids, maybe it's putting people in your community or your nieces or your nephews or spouse or job or coworkers. We're just naturally nurturing others and giving out. And so women have a tendency to put everybody else first and neglect themselves, and then wonder why they feel neglected. But it's because they've actually somehow they have this belief that that's how it should be. And it's not the case. In fact, women are, feminine energy is actually a receiving energy. The masculine energy is a giving energy. There's drive and flow, right? And we do have both, but it's that balance of what that looks like. So that I would say is, and giving themselves, along with that, giving themselves the permission to rest, giving themselves the permission to say, I need to go and take some time for myself. I need to invest in a coach so that I can take care of me, because when I take care of me, there's more of me,
right,
to be able to, give out to others.
Right.
If my tank is empty, there's nobody else. They're not going to get any more from me. When it's empty, it's empty.
Right.
So when I keep myself filled up, then I have more to give others.
So true.
And the more and the busier, because that's the excuse, right? Well, I'm too busy.
Right.
When my kids, when this happens and that happens.
So true.
The busier you are, the more important it is for you to take that time for yourself. Yeah. Because you're going to be depleted more because you got more going on. So you actually need to balance it. So once a week, an hour on a Sunday morning sleeping in or whatever is not enough. It is a daily practice, and just like spending even if those moments, it's not like hours and hours and hours, but when you're super depleted, then that's when it's like, I need 3 weeks to recover.
Right.
But once you get on this pattern of and this habit of taking care of yourself on a daily basis and refreshing and replenishing yourself, and even telling your kids, you know what, getting a babysitter, or your spouse takes them and you say, Mommy just needs a few minutes or whatever. And you take that time to just center and ground yourself. Yeah. Then when you come back, you'll be less brittle, and you'll have increased patience. You'll have like the fruits of the spirit, right? You'll have gentleness and the kindness and generosity, all those things. You'll be filled up again to be able to share and to serve others.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that description. Thanks for sharing those. Those were great. My last 2 questions. So tell me 3 words that best describe who you really and truly are.
Oh, wow. Okay. 3 words. So this is what came up, because last week I spoke at a conference, and it was the theme was military. Okay. So they sent me a uniform, which was like army fatigues. So much fun. Anyway, I thought that was great. I had a dog tag that was designed at another event that I was on. So I was like, oh, I'm going to wear my dog tag. On that dog tag, I had an I am statement.
Mm.
I am strong. I am loving, and I am powerful.
Mm.
It actually says, I am a strong, loving, powerful woman. So those are, I would think, 3 words.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's really cool. And my last question is, how do you strive to embody greatness?
Actually, I don't. I am a striver by nature.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a type
Mm-hmm.
A. Let's do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been called
Mm-hmm.
many, many times by people, even still recently, they call me a machine. It's like, I just go, nobody can outwork me. Right. And it is part of my process and still a learning process, and not strive for it, to simply be it. Because there's a model that I share with clients, and it's results come from behaviors and actions, and then behaviors and actions are actually influenced by what? Our mindset, which is our beliefs and all some of the things we've been talking about here, right? So I break it out. Well, there's the having, which is the results. The behavior and actions is the doing, and the mindset and the beliefs and all the roots, that's the being. Most of us, and myself included, spend a lot of time in the doing. How do I strive to be great? When the real question is, or the real priority or the focus is actually just being. I don't have to strive to be me. I already am. In fact, I might need to strive, if you will, to not try to be everybody else, but just to be me. There's a releasing, there's a relaxing. That's why the rest, if from scriptures actually says, rest in me, right? And so it's actually the reverse of not trying to strive to be great. Now, I do believe in excellence. And for that, discipline is a really important thing. So I've created a winning strategy, a daily winning strategy. There's the type A language, right? The daily winning strategy. When I do these things, life works. And when I don't do these things, and I am able to embrace my greatness and play that out. When I don't do these things, life quickly begins to not work. So rest, exercise, good food, my mind, my body, my spirit, refueling every day, right? Those things are priority for me. And I don't eat junk food. I don't listen to junk food. I don't listen and take in all of this junk. If I take in all of this negative that's going on around me, it's just going to weigh me down, right? So I am who I eat, or what I eat, I should say. I am what I listen to. And so I'm very intentional about the information that I let in. And that allows me for who I am, not to get like slimed by life, if you will.
Yep. I agree 100%. I adopt much of the same practices. And I totally agree. I mean, a big believer in what we put in our bodies, physically and mentally, has such a huge impact in our way in the world, and, who we are and our ability to be really, our best. And I think to be of best use, and to fulfill our purpose. So yeah, you're spot on there. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for being here today. I've so loved this conversation. I loved everything that you've had to share. I've taken so many great notes, and I hope that those of you listening in and watching, I'm sure you too have just gleaned so much from what she's had to say. And I just really appreciate just all of your wisdom and what you're doing in the world. And just really thank you for just coming and sharing your story and your heart and everything. So just thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I love sharing about this. You can tell I'm passionate about it because it's meant so much in my life and giving me so much freedom and peace and joy. And that feeling of abundance It's so amazing that I really want everybody to be able to experience that. And I think that's what that's where we're meant to experience.
Agree. Thank you.